네, 안녕하세요. 저는 한국장애인 문화예술원 공연장 추진단에서 일하고 있는 오세영이라고 합니다. 반갑습니다. 네. 먼저 저를 소개하면 저는 아시아계 50대 남성이고요. 키는 한 175cm 정도 되고 오늘 날씨가 추워서 모지코트를 긴 모지코트를 진회색 모지코트를 꺼내 입었고 베이지색 바지에 흰 운동화를 신고 이렇게 나와 있습니다. 추우신데 이렇게 와주셔서 감사드리고요. 오늘 발제하실 분 두 분 계시고 오늘 전체 진행을 해주실 모더레이터 분을 소개해드리고 자 이렇게 나왔습니다. 오늘 이제 앨리스 폭스님 교수 그리고 한나 맥퍼슨 연구원과 같이 발제를 하실 그 부분을 모더레이터를 해주실 박신희 교수님을 소개해드리겠습니다. 소개해드리기에 잠깐 앞서서 저희가 이제 2018년부터 장애예술 관련된 연구와 정책을 저희가 고민을 해오고 이러다 어떻게 산 증인 세 분이 오늘 발제를 맡아주시고 전체 진행을 해주시는데요. 장애예술이 이제 발전하고 어떤 지적인 모멘텀을 가지게 된 데 있어서 이 세 분의 영감 소개를 통해서 여기 굉장히 많은 영감과 여러 가지 에너지를 주셨고 그 덕분에 저희가 자신 있게 장애예술을 본격적으로 고민하고 추진할 수 있는 모멘텀이 됐었습니다. 세 분께 다시 한번 감사드리고 오늘 강의 잘 부탁드리겠습니다. 박신희 교수님은 이제 현재 경희대학교 경영대학원 문화예술 경영학과 고학 명예교수로 계십니다. 그래서 2000년부터 재직하셨고요. 현재는 이제 강의와 연구 활동과 함께 굉장히 더 바쁘게 활동을 하고 계십니다. 그리고 경희대학교의 문화예술 경영연구소 소장으로 활동하고 계시고 문화예술 경영 및 문화정책 관련 연구과제를 수행하고 계십니다. 장애예술 연구는 2018년에 저희 장문원과 함께 저희 그 장애예술에 관련된 기초 개념 연구 같은 것들을 진행하셨고 그때 포용적 예술을 소개를 해주셨습니다. 그 연구를 바탕으로 저희도 이후에 차후 연구를 많이 진행을 하게 됐고요. 장애예술의 인식 개선과 실질적인 장애예술 담론 확산에 주력하고 이에 따라서 포용적 예술을 통해서 새로운 예술 실천과 미학을 모색하고 계십니다. 제1기 한국문화예술위원회 예술위원, 그 다음에 한국문화예술교육진흥원 이사장을 역임하셨고요. 현재 한국국제문화교류진흥위원장 세종학당 이사로 활동하고 계십니다. 그러면 큰 박수로 박신희 교수님을 앞으로 모시겠습니다. 감사합니다.
예, 안녕하십니까. 오늘 아침에 날씨가 굉장히 추워졌는데도 이렇게 많이 와주셔서 정말 고맙습니다. 그리고 상당히 이쪽 분야에 관심을 많이 갖고 계신 분들이 눈에 띄어서 오늘 이 자리가 더욱더 의미 있게 진행될 것을 생각하니까 굉장히 행복한 마음이 듭니다. 저는 방금 소개받은 경희대학교 박신희입니다. 저는 올해에 2월에 정년 퇴임을 했고 나이에 비해서 동안이라는 말을 좀 많이 듣습니다. 그리고 제가 생각할 땐 철이 없어서 그런 것 같습니다. 그리고 목소리도 그렇게 늙지 않았습니다. 그리고 그래서 상상을 하시면 그러니까 정년 퇴임한 어르신으로 그러니까 제가 지금 지하철 표를 무료로 다니는 나이입니다. 그러나 저는 오늘 추워서 저도 그 코발트빛 그 가벼운 그 패치 그 코트를 입고 왔고요. 그리고 이 세타가 되게 이제 사람들이 귀엽다 그런 말을 많이 듣는데요. 제가 사실 조금 귀엽습니다. 그렇게 생각하시면 될 것 같습니다. 자, 그러면 오늘 강연을 맡아주실 앨리스 폭스님과 그리고 한나 맥퍼슨님을 잠깐 소개드리고 강연을 시작하겠습니다. 자, 앨리스 폭스님은 아까 오세형 팀장이 말씀하셨지만 사실 2018년에 저희가 포용적 예술을 연구를 하면서 앨리스 폭스의 그 포용적 예술에 관한 그 지침서라고 할 수 있죠. 그것을 전부 번역을 하고 그 개념을 저희가 한국에 소개한 바 있고, 그리고 직접 앨리스 폭스가 그때 한국에 와서 같이 세미나를 한 경우가 있습니다. 그래서 아까 오세영 팀장이 이제 산 증인이라고 얘기를 했고, 그 다음에 저희가 2018년에 만났고 그해, 그리고 이제 자주 이제 앨리스는 한국에 와서 뭐 서울시립미술관이나 다양한 문화예술 기관에서 포용적 예술에 관한 실질적인 그런 실행을 해 오기도 했었습니다. 그러나 이제 오늘 다시 보니까 또 반갑고, 그리고 이제 저희가 2018년에 만났기 때문에 저희가 만난 지 벌써 5년이 돼서 우리가 이제 우리 같이 늙어가는 사이다, 이렇게 농담을 하기도 했습니다. 현재 앨리스 폭스 교수는 브라이튼 대학교 예술대학의 부학장이고, 석사과정에서 포용적 예술 실천을 개설해서 이 포용적 예술을 실천할 수 있는 매개 인력 양성을 하고 있습니다. 그래서 굉장히 독특한 개념이지만 굉장히 저는 이게 선도적인 그런 인력 양성이라고 생각을 하고 있습니다. 2003년에는 학습장애인 예술가로 구성된 로켓 아티스트 스튜디오를 설립을 했고요. 주로 국제적으로 다양한 활동을 하고 있고, NGO와 문화, 보건 및 교육 분야 전문가를 교육하고 계십니다. 포용적 예술 실천을 다룬 책, 아까 제가 말씀드린 일종의 지침서 같은 경우인데요. 포용적 예술 실천 및 영국 비판적 선언문을 2015년에 오늘 같이 동행한 한나 맥퍼슨과 함께 공동으로 집필하셨고, 2017년에는 타임스 고등교육상 예술 분야 우수성 및 혁신상을 수상하셨습니다. 자, 그리고 이제 함께 강연을 해주실 한나 맥퍼슨님은 앨리스 폭스와 함께 아까 말씀드린 포용적 예술에 대한 그 책을 집필하셨고, 영국 연구위원회에서 지원하는 협업적인 커뮤니티 아트를 통한 회복력 구축 프로젝트의 수석 연구원을 지내셨습니다. 현재는 안전하고 지속 가능한 위생 시스템 증진을 위해 예술을 활용하는 브라운 골드를 향하여 프로젝트를 비롯해서 다양한 예술 기반 연구 개발 프로젝트를 진행을 하고 계시고, 또 프리랜서 컨설턴트로도 활동하고 계십니다. 15년 이상 소외된 집단과 함께 창의적 연구를 공동으로 진행해 왔고, 원래는 지리학을 전공한 학자였습니다. 그러다가 이 참여형 연구, 창의적 방법론, 비판이론을 전문으로 하시는 다양한 연사와 그리고 실제로 강의를 진행하고 계십니다. 자, 그렇다면 두 분 이제 앞으로 모셔서 강연을 부탁드리도록 하겠습니다. 자, 여러분 두 분을 맞이해 주시기 바랍니다.
Thank you so much for that introduction. So, my name is Dr. Hannah McPherson, as introduced. We are practitioners and researchers of inclusive arts. Inclusive Arts Practice and Research, a critical manifesto. We have had the privilege of working with diverse communities across the world. So we have been using inclusive arts and the principles we developed alongside people with learning disabilities to work with all sorts of marginalised groups, including women's groups and elders groups. And we've been doing this to create beautiful and socially meaningful work.
Okay, so just start out a little bit about what we've been doing. Professor Pop mentioned that I have been working with the Rocket Artist Studios since 2003, and it's an inclusive studios working with people with learning disabilities and artists without learning disabilities. And we support people to make work together and to exhibit work, and we also support them in their professional practice as artists. And really, much to my delight, yesterday Hannah and I went to the DDP to look at the digital art exhibition, and it's sponsored by Lush, and 2 of the Rocket artists have done the packaging for some of the Lush perfume. So we saw some of their work in the DDP yesterday. So that's just another example of how we're supporting them to be professional paid artists, and that's people with intellectual disabilities. So some of the benefits of inclusive arts is that it gives people who might be hidden in the margins of society an opportunity to have an audience, to talk about their life experiences, to talk about their ambitions and their interests, and to have an audience for their thoughts and their ideas. So another thing that inclusive arts, and when we're saying inclusive arts, we're meaning arts for everyone. So that's people with disabilities, people without disabilities, literally everyone, me, you, everyone. So that's the philosophy of inclusive arts. It's a way of making art where everyone is included. And so one of the things that inclusive arts is really good at is supporting conversations. And what you're looking at here is we're working with Epic Arts in Cambodia, and that's a disability arts organisation, and they're writing their 5-year strategic plan, but we're doing that in an inclusive arts way. So we're having a tea party where we're drawing and painting our ideas on the fruit and on the teacups, and you have the directors of the organisation at the tea party, and you also have people with disabilities at the tea party, and together we're writing the 5-year strategic plan it was. So it's a really good mechanism for having whichever type of conversations you feel that you need to have. Inclusive arts also supports good quality artwork. There's a sort of myth, a misunderstanding that if you're someone who's excluded from society, or maybe you've got an intellectual disability or physical disability, that you're not as good as other people at doing things, making things, and being things. So inclusive arts is really hot and really interested in supporting really kind of high quality contemporary artworks. And some of these artworks that you're looking at made by the Rocket artists have been on display at the Tate Modern up in London. So we can have, as mentioned before, creative conversations. So we started off working with people with learning disabilities with inclusive arts for many years, and we're still doing that. But because it's inclusive, we've realised that it can be used to work with other community groups as well. So here I'm in Kathmandu in Nepal, and I'm working with a group of artists who have been commissioned to make work for the Kathmandu Triennial. And what we're doing is we're sitting together in the back of a taxi here with a long piece of paper, driving through the bumpy roads of Kathmandu, discussing what is it like to be an artist in Kathmandu at the moment, creating these drawings with the artist and the taxi driver. So it's another form of kind of creative conversation. I mentioned professional practice. That's something that we do. So when you're an artist, yes, you make work, but also you need to make a living. You might sell your work, but you might need to run workshops. You might need to promote yourself. So one of the things we're doing here is we are working with the Rocket artists to learn how to run arts workshops. So here you can see we're doing a huge lino cut print on the floor, which actually a tractor pressed down for us over the top. And they were running an art workshop for the public. And here you've got Kelvin and Tina are preparing for a performance and supporting people in a dance workshop. So it's important to think about the people that we work with as a whole arts practitioner and all the skills that we need. So one of the key things about running an inclusive arts workshop or session is that as an artist without a disability or without an intellectual disability, we need to be self-aware. We need to be really conscious of the impact that our behaviour is having in the room and the power structures within that room. So we need to be very mindful to work towards, as far as possible, creating an equality within the session. So here you can see where we have a pair of people working together demonstrating how to do monoprinting in one of our sessions. And they were teaching monoprinting at the University of Brighton. Because inclusive arts is really good at conversations, it's also then it's a fantastic research tool. So together we can understand things, we can make new meanings through artistic inquiry. And the pictures that you're looking at here is a project that we did in Brussels with a group of paediatric doctors at the International Conference for Childhood Disability. And we did a performance, a site-specific performance about the heart as pumping and the heart as feelings. So what you're looking at here is our kind of research, artistic research process that we undertook to do the performance. So again, a photograph of people just making work together. And when you make work together, maybe you're going to talk, but also maybe you're going to come together just by being together and making together, which is one of the best ways of getting to know people. So museums, often people that we work with feel a bit excluded from museums or places with high cultural capital, high cultural value. And often museums are saying to me, how can we support more people with disabilities to come into our museum? So the Tate Modern asked me that question. And in response, we took a group of people with intellectual disabilities and we looked around the exhibition. We then used the colours and the shapes from some of the artworks in the exhibition to do a site-specific performance in the Tate Modern. And that's what you can see a picture of there, is us drawing on each other in response to some of the artworks. So in that way, the people with disabilities and the artists without disabilities who are working together had a really rich experience of the exhibits at the Tate Modern because they found a way to interact with them, be with them, and found a way to kind of consolidate their learning. So it was a really good way of accessing things in museums, is to actually do projects in museums rather than expect people to just read something and then walk on. That's not really how the people we work with find things useful. So sometimes the job of an inclusive artist is to support one person just to realise their artistic ambitions, so we're facilitating. So what you're looking at here is a photograph of my friend Luella, and she's in the Rocket Artists, and she had a big heart operation, and she wanted to make a piece of work about her experience in the hospital. And so we supported her to make this piece of work. And then this piece of work was up in the South Bank Centre because we put on an international exhibition of inclusive arts at the South Bank Centre in London. So this is another museum project that we did in our local museum, Brighton Museum. And sometimes the labels in museums aren't accessible. And so we went with a group of people with intellectual disabilities and we looked at the exhibits, and the museum gave us permission to write our own labels for the cabinets. So we are looking at the exhibits and describing what we see, and then we're sticking it on the glass. And it was really fantastic because we had two different types of views of the world, really. So one delightful example of that was we had the Queen's bed was one of the exhibits. And the museum sign said 14th century bed, slept in by Queen Elizabeth III. And then the person who wrote their own label stuck next to it, and they just said, nice bed for tired lady. So it gives us a different way of looking at the things that we're seeing. So I came here in June, and I was absolutely thrilled to go around and look at different arts organisations in Seoul and what was happening. And we're running a workshop on Friday, and we're absolutely thrilled that we're going to be running a workshop with some of the organisations and some of the people that I met in June. So I'm just going to show you a bit of the work that they've been doing. So this is a tactile painting where you're sort of collaborating with the tree and the artwork, which is interesting. We're going to talk a bit about the environment and eco-arts later. And here we have the Nodal Dance Company, who are doing really excellent dance performance with people with intellectual disabilities. And another slide of theirs with this beautiful kind of circular mat on the floor that they're using to hold people within a space in a larger outdoor space. And here we have Creative Teum, who is actually quite similar to the Rocket Artist Studios, making some really excellent artworks. And then here we have Peter Pan Club, and we have our friend in the audience, Peter Pan Club, doing really brilliant work using creative activities to make connections with people with profound autism and learning disabilities. So using materials to meet people and connect with people. Some really excellent work.
So today, one of the things we will be talking about is philosophies underpinning inclusive arts practice. So some of the guiding concepts and ideas. We started to write about this in our book, and then since been building on those ideas. What we wrote was that creative exchanges are not just helping you to be with a person, they're helping you to find a shared language and have something to say back to that person which reaches them. Done well, they involve an attentive being with that often feels like a conversation, but done without words, a form of artful listening. And you can read about that in our paper on listening space. We will now, today, try to cultivate some of this relational being with. And it's going to be a theme now running through this lecture around relationality and interrelationality in inclusive arts practice. In line with our philosophies and our theories of learning, we will do this lecture with you, not just to you. Research shows that our chances of successfully learning new information are influenced by the number of neural pathways we create to find it. So, our lectures involve an experiential approach based in multisensory, active, hands-on learning theory. So firstly, it is now time that we all related before we talk a little bit more about the relational and inclusive art and how we are pushing understandings of the relational and the interrelational through inclusive arts practice. So, we are going to do something that everyone here today can do.
Okay, so we're going to ask you to get into pairs. So find someone that you're sitting near in a pair, two by two, and decide which person is A and which person is B. So just turn to someone next to you and say, I'm A or I'm B. Make a decision. I think we need a chair down here. Okay, everyone's going to do this, and it's going to be super easy and super enjoyable. Maybe move that nearer. Okay, if you're A, can you put your hand up now? I want to see all the A's. Very nice. Can I see? Yep. And then if you're B, can you put your hand up? Have we got as many B's? We must have. Okay, great. Great. So, Hannah and I are going to demonstrate. So one of the key things about being in inclusive arts is you show people as well as talk about what you're going to do. So, Hannah, are you going to be A or B?
I am A.
Okay, I'll be B. So I'm going to ask you to make a movement with your hands. Any movement. There's no wrong movement. So can you think of a movement, Hannah? Okay, that's your movement. Okay, I'm going to do this movement. Okay, so in your pairs, just think of a movement with your hands and show each other, and do that now. That's perfect. That's a really nice one. Yeah. Two hand movement like this. Love it, love it.
So A has one movement and B has another movement.
Have you got a movement?
And you share.
Okay. Okay, great, brilliant. So now we're going to put those movements together. So I'm going to show you what we're going to do. So remind me your movement, Hannah. Okay, and mine was this. So do you want to go first, or shall I go first?
I'll go first.
You'll go first. And how many times will you do your movement?
3 times.
Okay, then I'll follow, and I think I'll do mine 5 times. Okay, so then we're going to copy each other. Okay, so Hannah. Okay, now you do that. So put the movements together and copy each other's movement. Okay, well, it looks good from here. Right, so now one last job. If you just make sure you're sitting really comfortable in your chair, feel the sides of your chair, feel the side with your hands of your chair, feel the side, and sit with your back straight, okay? And then you're going to go up as high as you can with your hands, really high, really high. And actually say hello to me with a wave. Oh, that's lovely, thank you. That's me very happy. And then hands down. I take a breath. And then hands up again. Super and down. Okay, so the last thing we ask you to do is the same, but we're going to do it tall. So we'll show you. So Hannah first. Okay, is that clear? Yeah? So now, this half is going to do that movement tall, and this half is just going to watch. You're the audience. Yeah, so this half will, from here. Yeah? Okay, so I'm going to count you in, 1, 2, 3, and then this half, you're going to do the performance, and these people are going to watch you. Okay, ready? Really tall. All right, not yet, not yet. At the back, no. 1, 2, 3, go. And then do your movements. Do your movements that you rehearsed, so like this.
To each other, the two movements.
Up high. Okay, down, down. That's not clear. So that was great, by the way. But not what I expected. So we're going to show you again. Not that. So your original movements up high. Put that together, yeah? Okay, 1, this side. 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, and then down. Very nice. Okay, you know it's happening, this side. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Very nice, and down. Okay. So, thank you for doing that. Where's our bell?
So what did we learn from this activity?
Firstly, we wanted to point out there's no right or wrong way to do it. So it's an activity that everyone can do, and everyone can feel like they've achieved it. And when we're running this, we had to just we had to be a bit out of control so that you could just interpret it how you would like to interpret it. So it's important not to preempt, not to think and control what people are giving you, your own movements. And it's just a way of giving a framework within which to meet each other. And hopefully, after that, you feel just a little bit closer to the person next to you. You feel a little bit less alone in your seat. Is the Brené Brown? Let's see what next slide.
Sorry. Yes, that's it.
Okay, so it's important to have the capacity as an inclusive artist to feel vulnerable. And as you can see from the Brené Brown quote, once we let go of control and power of the people that we're working with, and we embrace a sense of vulnerability, that's then where really interesting collaborations and creativity can happen. So you need to be quite brave when you're working with people.
So during that activity, when we turn to each other, we start to come into being, into the present moment, together, interrelationally. So that's the concept of the relational self, as it is in sociology. how we think of the self, the body, and subjectivity are at the heart of philosophies guiding inclusive arts practice. There is a risk, if we focus on the art outputs of just a few talented individuals, that we prioritise the individual and align ourselves with discourses of autonomy, self-sufficiency, and personal self-development. There is a place for the individual great artist, but not just that. There is also a place for inclusive arts. Otherwise, there is a denial of the relational, connective nature that is central to becoming human, whoever we are. As the little improvised performance you did then began to show, we are shaped within our relations, the relational self. The performance was short, but it created new feelings, new encounters, and new connections in the room. It changed you ever so slightly. It was original. Over a lifetime, our relations unfold and emerge within socio-cultural contexts, intersecting with all sorts of aspects of our gender, class, ethnicity, and disability. We are complex, intersectional, and relational beings. We are not fixed, and our brains never stop changing in response to our learning. As inclusive artists, we understand this and agree with philosopher Davy when she states, agency and autonomy of individual persons only emerges relationally through the support and enablement of others. For those interested in this area, it is instructive to read the philosophical insights of Davy as she works towards her concept of relational autonomy. And she has a sister with an intellectual disability, so it informs her work. She merges understandings of the relational self with a respect for individuality. Focusing on producing these relations can be a really important part of high-quality inclusive artwork. Focusing on what we can do and be in the present moment through our relations can also help foster creativity and help us shed heavy identity. So a heavy identity is one you hold on to, like that of the expert or the great artist. Focusing on the relational can help us avoid leaning into too narrow a work. But this requires nuance and a respect for individual journeys as well. And this is evident here in the in-out performance that Alice produced during a prior visit.
Yeah. So what you're looking at here is a project that I did in 2019. And it was in inclusive art performance with half the group had intellectual disabilities and half the group were artists in residence at the Fine Art Museum. And the topic was the idea of in and out. So who is in and who is out? That can be a small micro idea or a big kind of social comment about exclusion and inclusion. So we used a large 20-meter diameter stretchy black cloth, and we all cut holes in it and got inside it. And one of the reasons we did that was because we were in a large atrium, a large noisy atrium with the public going by, and we needed a safe, contained space to be with each other, and the cloth gave us that. So we performed inside the cloth, and we also performed outside the building and under the cloth. And even here, we're anchored, we're holding the edge of the cloth together just to feel like a group of people together with lots of people outside watching. And really, with this cloth, we kind of created our own community and our own world within another world that was inclusive. And hopefully visually interesting for the audience. So I'm just going to say, we did another performance. I did another performance in Taiwan, and this is in the Taichung National Museum of Fine Art. And here we have the same idea of materials supporting relational experiences. So we worked with a group of elders, typically a demographic that wouldn't access their museum, a growing demographic in Taiwan. And the performance was the elders and the museum staff. And what you can see here is we're cutting, so we have long thread, a red ribbon in pairs, and we're cutting it. And as we cut, we're walking closer together. And the materials, the ribbon is falling on the floor, and we're coming closer together. And at the back, the people standing up have got a piece of ice this size, and they're passing the ice. And as the ice melts, they take a step closer together. So you can see how the materials, either the cloth or the ribbon or the ice, collaborate in this experiment of coming together with someone we might not usually come together with.
So understandings of the relational self don't have to be limited in inclusive arts to just the focus on connections we have with other people. We also come into being relationally with our art materials, the environment, here the ribbon and ice, and the spaces, the plants, even pets. Inclusive arts recognizes this relationship with the materials, the environments and the animals around us, both directly as embodied being and through interpretation as socio-cultural beings. For example, sharing ice together motivates us to move and behave in certain ways that we might not do otherwise. So there is an aesthetics here of encounter and of exchange. Today we are going to do some interactions with you focused on ice. I'm sorry it is so cold. You will be passing the ice along your row.
You have paper napkins in front of you. Can you hold this? See on the seat here? Oh, yeah. Can you show? Yeah. So you have a paper. Everyone get a paper napkin.
Hold the ice for as long as you want and then pass it on. Alice will be handing out the ice, but to warm our hands up while Alice is doing this, we need to do this first. So now we do our activity.
So I'm going to give you a piece of ice and just pass along the row. Okay, thank you. You don't want it in your hand? You like it in your hand or? Huh? Can have on your hand or on here? Yeah. So you pass like this, or you pass down. So just pass the ice along the row. I'm going to come the other side. And it's going to come back this way. Coming in. Too cold, yeah. Okay, come. So pass back. So pass back or pass up. So now, you're going to pass the ice along or up and down the row. Yeah.
So if you have the ice, you can pass it behind you or pass it in front of you. The ice
Maybe
may be
pass
coming
back.
at you again, but you may refuse the ice.
A big bit this way. Yeah, you can pass down. You can pass back that way. So keep passing the ice. Don't hold it too long because it's too cold. So keep passing. Pass down, pass up, pass left, pass right. Okay, how are we doing? Okay, I'm good. I'll take it. Thank you. It's okay.
We have a bucket.
So now, if you have ice, put your hand up. Where's the ice? Okay. Let's see now if we can pass the ice down and come into this bucket. So pass it down. You two, get the ice for me. So pass the ice down now. Coming down. It's going to come into the bucket, yeah? So pass down, yep. All coming down, down.
We're good. Alice,
Are we?
we're at 39. I started it just late, so
Okay.
it's perfect.
Is it good? Okay, where's the ice? Is it in the bucket? Some here. And there's some here. Pass along. Pass it along. The bucket stays here. Okay. Pass, pass. Anyone got any more ice? If it's in your pocket, that's okay. Okay, let's do that. Cold hands, yeah? Except Professor Park, has still got warm hands.
Okay. So you have just had an immediate relational experience with this ice through your senses. It was cold. However, you may have also begun to place an interpretation on this experience. Is the ice an art material? Is it a metaphor for climate change? Or a metaphor for the sorts of uncertainty we should be encountering when we are being truly creative? Or you may have just thought, when should I pass the ice? What is polite? Or, I don't want the ice. Or perhaps it's a metaphor for the barriers that are melting between us when we pass the ice. Certainly, if we take a holistic concept of the relational self as coming into being with both humans and non-humans, with the air, the weather, plants, and ice, these can all be recognized as potential co-collaborators in the making of inclusive art. They all have forms of agency in the world. Thus, the forms of collaborative practice that we developed alongside people with learning disabilities have now come to be relevant for us in collaborating with a wide range of people in varied environmental contexts, inclusively with each other, our art materials, and the environment.
Yeah, so what you're looking at here now is myself and a performance artist, Ashmina Ranjit, in Nepal. There's an artist called Francis Alice who 30 years ago, by himself, pushed a piece of ice around Mexico City until it melted. So 30 years later, to highlight women's issues in Nepal, 2 women pushed 2 pieces of ice together, supporting each other. We pushed the ice around Kathmandu city until it melted. We decided to do it in silence, and we decided to support each other without words. And even though we were in Kathmandu and it was hot, it took 7 hours for the ice to melt. So imagine you just had the ice for a few seconds, right? Pushing for 7 hours. But with no words, just with the help of the ice, at the finish of the 7 hours, myself and Ashmina, very close. And now we consider ourselves ice sisters, because we did this together. Now, that's a powerful thing. So what else can you do with a stranger for 7 hours, where at the end of those 7 hours, you feel like family? Yeah, this is a powerful tool against social isolation. So another project
No, sorry.
Another project that we did was, this is a project in the UK, and we worked with a group of single mothers who never went to the countryside. And we know all the research around the healing properties of being in the environment and being with nature. So for our inclusive materials, we decided the wood and the landscape was going to give us our materials, because also we wanted to use materials that were there so that we didn't take and leave the materials there. So we didn't take from the landscape and we didn't put things, unnatural things, in the landscape. So the first year we did a 180-meter sleeping giant made from wood in the landscape. And then the second year we used some chalk that had been dug out of the landscape to make a local road, 200 tons of chalk to make a circle and a spiral. And now that just goes down into the soil. And then the third year, we made a big dragon lying on the floor from wood we found. And now little creatures are living there, and slowly it decays into the ground. So in a time where there's an environmental crisis, can inclusive arts ignore that?
So we have talked through all sorts of projects that we have been lucky enough, some of which we have collaborated on together and others separately. And here there are just a couple of references of things we have written about so that you can understand more around the relational as we understand it in arts practice.
So one of our most recent projects is myself and Hannah were part of a collaborative interdisciplinary research group. We got money from the UK government to look at the issues of poor sanitation back in Nepal. So I was the artist. We were working as researchers and artists with biochemists and economists in this interdisciplinary group looking at sanitation issues. So we worked in the Lumbini Peace Park, the birthplace of Buddha, and we worked with local craftspeople, and we designed and made 2 mud houses, a mud house installation with a passageway in between. And the mud houses are made from everything again in the earth. So it's literally mud, cow dung, bamboo, and straw ceiling, and work with local builders. And so we're calling this our mud house installation. And it's a 3-year project, and it's there today. You can see it in Nepal. As part of this project, we worked with a group of excluded women sanitation workers. So they work in this national World Heritage birthplace of Buddha, but they're just cleaning the toilets, sweeping the streets, and they're not seen by anyone, and they're not valued by anyone. So as part of the project, we did a performance with the name Unclean, Unseen at the Women of the World Festival in the Peace Park. And we worked with the women to design the performance around their life experience of sanitation issues and their desires to be seen. That's why we've got a smart dress and we're up on top of the tractor and we drive through the Peace Park, the opposite of on our knees, cleaning the toilets. Yep. And then after that, we worked with some local mural artists, and on the outside of our mud houses, we asked them to make murals from the scientific information that had been gathered by the science researchers in our group about problems of local sanitation, which is very serious, causing very serious health problems, and some solutions to how sanitation can be improved, including the use of human manure and fertilizer. So in this way, you can see that the installation, the piece of inclusive arts, is both an artistic installation designed to provoke a conversation in the way that we've been talking about, but also in this case, it provokes the conversation, but at the same time, inside the house, gives us a place to have the conversation as well. So we can invite people in to have the conversation, and we can read the murals on the outside. And they're there now, and we've employed a community worker, and lots of schools come to visit, and there's a big kind of outreach program. So it looks different to the work that we started with the rocket artists, but because of the philosophy of inclusion, arts for everyone, it's actually exactly the same thing, just a different group of people. So we can see then that inclusive arts can also be used for health issues, for education, as well as for the arts. So what we have here is just a very useful diagram. You don't need to understand all of it now. You have it in your handout, so you take it away. But what this diagram does, it's Wolf Brown, and what they try to do is describe the benefits of inclusive arts. And they think that there are 5 main benefits of inclusive arts. Number 1 being personal development. There's a category for personal development there. Number 2 is the economic and social benefits that inclusive arts can have. So it's not just fun, it can boost the economy and can have real social benefits. So these are the sort of arguments that we need to make when we're designing our projects and when we're talking to funders, because we need to get funding to do this work. There are a lot of benefits in the middle there around human interaction, and some of those you've experienced today. That sense of being linked up with other people. And then the imprint, the memory, the legacy of the art activity itself. It has a history that keeps working even after the art activity is finished. And then together we can kind of create this communal meaning as well. So that's just a useful tool to refer to either when you're evaluating your project, when you're setting the aims for your project, and when you're trying to get funding for your project. You might want to pull out some of these. So this is a question I always like. Who decides who's included? I think that everyone in this room can decide who's included, either on a small level, who are you including in your conversations, or on a bigger level, maybe you're here from an institution, maybe you're here from a funder, maybe you're here from a university, maybe you're an artist. You have the power to make this happen and to design and invite someone in to be included. There's a kind of issue around the word inclusive arts in the way that Arts for Everyone kind of addresses. And that's that when we think about inclusion, I very much think I'm going to include, for example, the rocket artists, people with intellectual disabilities, into my world and hopefully into the art world. And I'm hoping that the rocket artists are going to feel safe and comfortable enough to include me into their world and their life experience. So the idea of inclusion is very much two-way.
So we have had the privilege of working with all sorts of international groups since the publication of our first book. And trust for us has been crucial in building these successful creative partnerships. You can only travel at the speed of trust. That includes with local facilitators, artists, NGOs, scientists, members of parliament, and marginalised communities themselves. Trust is crucial for authentic creative acts. In Cairo, we recently explored this question at the Global South Arts in Health Week. So we were just there in September with many practitioners of inclusive arts and arts in health. And we thought you'd like this. It's sort of the freshest group thinking from an international group from the Global South around how this question here around building trust and how do you know if trust is present in your projects, be you a commissioner or a participant. And these were some of the suggestions. Your heart beats slower, you feel free to express feelings and opinions, you feel connected, you can talk freely, there is good listening, there is confidence in another person, and there is willingness to learn another's games. So today, we thank you for trusting us a little bit and playing our games. And finally, I hand over to Alice for our last 3 points.
Yeah, so just summarise some of what we've been saying. We've been saying that the relational aspect of inclusive arts is really where the value lies. That's the alchemy. Yeah? It's that relationship and everything that can grow from that. We're also saying to you that we found that the principles that we co-developed alongside our colleagues with intellectual disabilities are relevant to other community groups because of the nature of inclusion. And so if you're working with elders or women's groups or people with mental health challenges, you can use the same approach. And of course, that's really good news for artists and arts organisations because it means we can be less specialist and work with lots of excluded groups, which means that our practice is more sustainable. And then we've also pointed out that to really get the benefits that we've just shown you, you need to establish that connection with the people you're working with, and you need to build that within an environment of trust. And without the trust and without that connection, you're not going to see any of the benefits that we've been looking at. So those are key points for you. And really, we just wanted to ask you a question now, not to answer now, but to take away. And that's ask yourself, be ambitious. What are my ambitions for a more inclusive future? What can I do? What can I do? A small thing or maybe a bigger thing to build a more connected, more inclusive world for everyone. Okay. That's us finished.
Yeah, thank you.
you.
One of these on. No, that's the hour.
That's finished yet.
Yeah. It was literally an hour.
여러분 어떠셨어요? 저는 이게 거의 그 참여적 그 강연 또는 체험을 동반하는 굉장히 감각적인 우리의 감각을 일깨우는 그런 강연이 아니었나 이런 생각을 해봅니다. 전체 진행은 12시까지 하고요. 그리고 처음에 조금 제가 전체적인 내용을 조금 요약을 하면서 쟁점을 좀 정리를 한번 해보고요. 그리고 거기에 대한 코멘트를 듣고 그리고 나서 이제 플로어에 그 질문을 받으려고 합니다. 그런데 저는 가능하면 플로어의 질문들이 더 활발하게 이렇게 진행되기를 원하고 여러분이 그 주저하지 말고 아까 우리 이미 신뢰의 관계가 형성됐잖아요. 그래서 훨씬 여러분의 심장은 느리게 안정적으로 하고 그리고 여러분의 생각을 자유롭게 표현할 수 있는 자신감을 가지셨으리라고 저는 생각을 하니까 그 플로우와의 그 적극적인 대화 이게 더 진행이 되기를 바랍니다. 자, 일단 포용적 예술은 이제 inclusive arts라는 얘기를 한 지는 이제 5년 전이긴 하지만 그래도 아직 우리나라에서는 이렇게 대중화된 것 같지는 않습니다. 그런데 inclusive art에서 굉장히 중요한 컨셉은 너무나도 우리가 잘 알고 있는데도 그 개념을 이렇게 보다 더 적극적으로 성찰하지 못했던 것들을 다시 한번 일깨우는 게 아닌가 싶습니다. 그래서 실제로 두 분이 첫 번째로 포용적 예술은 대화다. 뭐 대화라는 거 다 알죠. 그런데 그 대화라는 것은 결국은 관계를 설정하는 것이고 그리고 그 관계를 통해서 우리가 다 연결돼 있다는 그런 그 생각을 갖게 하는 것인데 그러나 여기서 굉장히 다른 부분이 있다고 생각합니다. 왜 포용이라는 말을 썼을까라는 것은 그 포용의 반대가 배제적이라는 뜻이거든요. 그러면 우리가 무엇을 배제했나라는 것을 대화와 관계와 연결이라는 개념에서 저희가 사고할 수 있어야 될 것 같습니다. 그래서 저는 어떻게 보면은 우리가 보통 이 배제, 사회적 배제라는 걸 얘기했을 때는 장애인이라든가 또는 뭐 성소수자 또는 뭐 난민 또는 탈북자 또는 뭐 소수민족 뭐 여러 가지 그런 얘기를 하고 있지만 사실은 제가 볼 때는 문화적 차원에서의 배제가 더 정확한 표현이라고 생각을 합니다. 그러니까 이 문화라는 것의 배제가 뭐냐면 어떻게 보면은 우리 인간의 가장 큰 한계는 자기중심적 사고에서 벗어나기 어렵다고 얘기하잖아요. 근데 사실 제가 장애예술을 연구하면서 저 스스로도 대오각성을 한 게 뭐냐면 제가 여태까지 비장애인 중심으로 사고했다라는 생각을 하게 된 겁니다. 그러니까 비장애인 중심으로 사고를 했다라는 것은 내가 내 스스로 장애라는 것이 뭔가 그것을 스스로 제가 배제해 왔던 거죠. 그런데 결국 장애라는 것은 가만히 생각하면 결국 장애가 있고 비장애가 있고 이런 분류의 개념이 아니라 인간과 세상을 바라보는 관점의 문제에서 제가 반쪽짜리 관점만 가지고 있었다는 뜻이었습니다. 그러니까 비장애 중심으로 세상을 바라봤고 그러면서 결국 자기중심적 사고라는 부분, 그러니까 내 입장에서만 보는 이런 것들이 결국 세상을 반으로밖에는 볼 수 없었던 거고, 그런 점에서 포용적 예술이라는 것은 세상을 온전하게 보게 하는 그런 관점이라는 점에서 저는 굉장히 큰 깨달음과 그리고 어떤 혁신적 요소가 있다라는 생각을 하고 있습니다. 그 다음에 이제 그 연결이라는 개념에서 이 두 분이 그 연결을 이제 예술 재료로 얘기하셨죠. 그래서 우리 아까 얼음 만졌는데 전 진짜 차가운 거 싫어서 안 만졌습니다만 이미 느낌으로도 손이 차가워지는 것 같았어요. 자, 그런데 이 얼음이라는 게 비생명체잖아요. 그러나 나는 얼음과 관계를 가진 것입니다. 그리고 얼음과 연결이 됐어요. 그래서 그 연결된 의미가 내 몸의 감각을 바꿔놨어요. 그렇기 때문에 결국 우리가 생각하는 배제했던 것이 뭐냐면 우리는 언제나 세계를 바라볼 때 생명 중심으로만 봤거나 인간 중심적으로만 봤다는 거죠. 그래서 그러니까 비생명적인 재료들, 물체들 또는 환경이라든가 뭐 여기에 있는 이런 이 노란색이라든가 이런 것들이 사실은 인간과 모두 관계를 가지고 있고 연결돼 있다는 그런 사고를 하게 하는 게 바로 포용적 예술이죠. 자, 그런 것이 왜 장애예술과 또 연관이 되냐면 지금 여기 계신 분들이 저를 다 보실 수 있잖아요. 그러면 눈이 안 보인다는 게, 앞이 안 보인다는 게 무슨 의미인가라는 걸 보면 사실 눈을 뜬다고 해서 다 뜨고 있다고 해서 다 보는 것도 아니거든요. 자기가 뭔가를 신경을 쓰고 주의를 하는 것만 보이는 거지 안 보이는 게 너무 많습니다. 저희가 눈을 떠도. 그러나 시각장애인은 보지 않아도 보는 게 너무 많아요. 그렇다면 저희의 관점이 바뀌어야 된다는 겁니다. 그러니까 비장애인은 비장애인이라는 이유 때문에 스스로를 우리가 모르는 세계를 스스로를 배제했던 것 같습니다. 그래서 오히려 거꾸로 저는 그래서 장애예술에 또 장애예술을 저희가 포용적 예술이라고 하는 이유는 장애와 비장애인이 함께 한다라는 그런 지점이 아닐까라는 그런 생각입니다. 그리고 이제 이분들이 굉장히 다양한 나라에서 그런 프로젝트를 하면서 이런 컨셉들을 실현해 가셨는데 뭐 마지막에 얘기했던 네팔에서의 그 환경미화원 여성은 정말 멋졌습니다. 그래서 결국 이분들이 예술이 특별하고 단순히 특별한 게 아니라 예술성이 뛰어나다라는 그런 지점이 뭐냐면 바로 이런 사고의 전환 속에서 그러니까 보다 포용적인 관계와 그래서 보다 총체적인 어떤 연결 개념을 가질 수 있을 때 그리고 모든 인간 중심적 사고가 아니라 물질적인 것 또는 비생명체건 환경이건 이거를 다 관계의 주체로 보는 거거든요. 그러니까 얼음이 저한테 대화를 나눈 거예요. 대화를 던져준 거라는 거죠. 그러니까 제가 얼음 먹어 그냥 차가워 이게 아니라 그 안에 여러 매개 작용을 하는 이런 점이라는 점에서 결국 예술성이 더욱더 올라간다는 뛰어난 예술성을 갖게 된다는 그런 의미라고 저는 보여집니다. 그래서 바로 이런 점에서 포용적 예술은 장애 예술을 포함은 하지만 훨씬 저로서는 포용적 예술은 관점의 문제에서 훨씬 더 실천적인 그런 맥락을 보유한다는 그런 정도로 정리를 하고자 합니다. 자, 그래서 간단히 여기에 대한 한번 코멘트를 좀 듣고 그러면서 이런 프로젝트들이 점점 더 이런 개인의 변화에서 시작해서 이 사회 경제적인 문제까지 해결하는 이런 부분에서 최근에 저희 사회에서도 이런 고립의 문제 또는 이런 관계 설정이 굉장히 거칠어지고 폭력적인 관계 설정에 처해 있는 이런 사회 속에서 앞으로 어떤 프로젝트를 더욱더 또 생각하고 계신지 이런 또 한국 사회에 대한 관심도 이미 갖고 계셔서 굉장히 좋은 프로젝트도 하시고 계셨는데 저는 개인적으로 한국 사회가 굉장히 마음적으로 아픈 부분이 너무 많다고 생각을 하고 있어서 이런 부분에 대한 앞으로의 계획 같은 거를 잠깐 설명을 해주시면 저희가 또 이제 플로어의 질문으로 이어갈 수 있을 것 같습니다.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to go first?
I got a few thoughts.
Yeah, and then I'll.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, at the heart of disability arts or inclusive arts is the desire to accept difference and to go beyond that and celebrate human difference. And that is so key at a time where there are, wars, violent acts, people being excluded, the terror of isolation. And so it's one tool that we have that is really brilliant at doing that. And so the reason we talk to you about our materials is the material is the vehicle, is the tools to create that. So as artists, whether we do music, drama, dance, visual art, installation, as artists, we are very powerful because we know how to use art to celebrate difference and to include people. And that's something that I want to do. And if I take away myself as an artist, how am I going to do that? Yeah, if I don't have art. So art and art materials are actually very powerful. And I think we need to use it for positive social change.
Thank you so much for your thoughts on our presentation. Yes, self-centered thinking needs to be moved away from. Yes, thank you for that message. We are all temporarily abled in some way. So the distinctions between disabled and abled, they're always changing anyway on our life journeys. Yes, if I am blind, if I use a chair, if I am sick, these things create ontologically distinct ways of being, ways of knowing. But at best, they are shared. The World Health Organization now recognizes a One Health approach. No longer is it health like medical health. They have a planetary health definition of health. This recognizes what we have been talking about. We are at one and interconnected fundamentally with our environment. And health for all, inclusion for all, are all part of that. You are right when we say we exclude what we don't know. We live in an attention economy. Everything now in the modern world, technology, is looking for our attention. So what we pay attention to is very important.
예, 땡큐. 그러면 지금부터는 이제 플로어로 질문의 기회를 돌리도록 하겠습니다. 혹시 질문하실 분이 있으시면 손을 드시며 마이크가 전달이 되고 간단히 본인 소개하시고요. 그다음에 저한테 주의가 왔는데 통역 때문에 말을 좀 천천히 해달라고 하네요. 자, 그러면 저기 아까 손 드신 분에게 마이크 전달이 될까요?
안녕하세요. 저는 아르코 미술관에서 온 김상희라고 합니다. 먼저 그 차이를 축하한다는 그 말씀이 되게 인상 깊었고요. 그리고 그 생각과 신념이 다른 사람들을 서로 그 포용하는 것도 아주 필요하고 지금 우리에게 가장 중요한 일이 아닌가 그런 생각을 했습니다. 저의 질문은 신뢰가 없는 상황에서 이러한 그 액션을 이끌어내는 게 쉽지 않을 것 같거든요. 가지고 계신 노하우나 그런 것들이 있다면 소개해 주셨으면 좋겠습니다.
오늘 사실은 액티비티를 하면서 저희는 사실 이미 어느 정도 신뢰가 구축된 이 공간에 있는 사람들은 액티비티가 수월했을 것 같습니다. 그러나 어려움도 분명히 있으셨을 것 같은데요. 말씀해 주시면 고맙겠습니다.
Yeah, developing trust. One really important thing is you never ask someone to do something that they can't do or they don't know how to do it. You never humiliate or shame anyone, because if that happens, not just the person who was humiliated, oh, you didn't do that right, everyone else in the room goes, oh, maybe next time that's me. So never humiliate, never shame, never judge, and then set things playful, like a playful environment. And also, be willing yourself to be vulnerable and make mistakes. Yep. So you show that it's okay. You know, maybe I'm going to get the slides a bit wrong. Maybe we're going to have to try that again. Like, it's okay to get things wrong. And then just be playful. Because human beings are very sensitive. It's very easy to lose trust. But really, the absolute root cause of no trust, and I would also say violent actions, is if you shame or you humiliate people. Just never do that. Yeah. And sometimes in art classes that happens, right? Oh, that doesn't look like the right shape for a leg. Do it again. You know? Yeah, trust gone. Trust gone. Yeah.
자, 다음 질문 옆에 있는데요.
안녕하세요. 저는 국민일보 손영옥 기자라고 하는데요. 사실 강연과 관련될 수도 있고 안 될 수도 있는 건데 개인적인 관심인데, 용어라는 거는 사실 어떤 자신의 철학 같은 거가 반영되는 거죠. 그 사회의 철학을 반영하는데, 그 에이블 아트를 쓰는 곳도 있었고, 이제 포용적 예술, 인클루시브 아트를 이제 영국 쪽에서 썼는데, 좀 전에 그 이제 박신희 교수님께서 그 용어가 탄생한 지 이제 5년이라고 말씀을 한국에서 그래서 그렇구나. 근데 어쨌거나 영국에서 한 90년대 중반 그렇게 들었던 것 같은데 그 용어가 어떻게 해서 탄생했고 한국에서 수입해서 5년 만에 이제 저 같은 사람도 익숙하게 듣는 그 용어가 됐는지 그 한 용어가 한 사회에서 탄생해서 이게 퍼져나가는 그 과정을 단기간에 퍼져나갈 수 있는 어떤 뭐 전략이면 전략이고 이 전 지구적인 사회 현상의 변화도 있을 수 있을 것 같은데 거기에 대해서 어떤 생각, 어떤 관찰 뭐 그런 게 있으신지 말씀해 주시면 고맙겠습니다.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go then. You,
Yeah,
Yep.
sure.
I mean, thank you so much for that question. It's a really useful question. It's actually got quite a simple answer, and that's that the art has an audience. So if you're doing really good art, then the audience will see that good art, and then it will spread. If you just try to talk about it and not show it, it's never going to spread. But if your funding organisations here are able to fund things so that we can show what inclusive arts looks like, then it's going to do the work for you. It sells itself because the audience can sense the authenticity. They can sense that there's something humanly positive about it. So once you've got some good inclusive arts projects, they're gonna sell that for you. And I think the other thing that we noticed in the UK, which is why I wrote the Masters in Inclusive Arts at the University of Brighton, which we started in 2008, is that you need to set up a training program. Some kind of training program, even if it's a short intensive program to start. Doesn't need to be a 2 years master's course. It can be some short. Because if we say that art has the capacity for well-being, which is agreed, right? There's research on that. Art can make us feel good. One thing you hear less about is if it has the power to be good, then obviously the other side is it has the power for us to feel really bad. Yeah. So who's been in an art class and the teacher and you feel really bad, that wasn't right. You've been told you did it wrong. So that's why we need training as inclusive artists, because it does also have the power to make people feel bad. And we are saying that we're working with vulnerable people. So we need to make sure that when we run the projects, it is going to be a positive experience and it is going to work. So that two things. One, make good work and show it to a big audience, which is what you're already doing here. And then two, some training for artists and arts organisations. Anything to add, Hannah?
Yeah, just briefly. The most important thing is the spread of the practice, not the spread of the jargon or language. All sorts of people have been doing inclusive art making, craft making for centuries. This is its latest manifestation. We, together as a powerful partnership, writing and making, has been part of our own success together. So, on a more practical, personal note, that has been part of it. Yeah.
예, 일단 앨리스 폭스 교수는 2008년부터 브라이튼 대학에서 사용을 하셨지만 이제 또 잉글랜드 아츠 카운슬에서 이것을 적극 지원하고 해서 이 홍콩 같은 경우는 아예 인클루시브 아트 쓰고 있고, 그다음에 오스트레일리아 영연방 국가에서는 다 인클루시브 아트라는 개념을 쓰고 있고, 아까 앨리스 폭스 교수가 첫 앞부분에서 소개해 주신 캄보디아 에픽 아트 같은 경우도 인클루시브 아트라는 말을 사용하고 있습니다. 그리고 이제 앨리스 폭스 교수의 저서를 보시면 이제 거기에 이제 일종의 지침처럼 나와 있는데 사실 모든 장애 예술은 비장애인하고 다 함께 하거든요. 그래서 처음부터 장애인만 하는 예술이라고 우리가 이해할 수 있는데 그렇지 않거든요. 그래서 그러면서 이제 장애 예술에서 이제 특별히 알렉스 폭스 교수가 관객을 말씀하신 것도 사실 장애 예술을 우리 한국 같은 경우는 그 접하는 관객이 엄청나게 한정이 돼 있죠. 거의 장애인 가족이거나 지인이거나 그런 점에서라도 이것이 갖는 확장성이 있다고 보여지고요. 그래서 그 지침서에서 보면은 모두가 자신의 관점이 아닌 가운데서 상대방의 입장에 어떤 상호작용을 훈련하는 그러니까 공연 자체가, 그러니까 또는 전시 자체가 그런 것으로 이렇게 지침이 돼 있어요. 그래서 상당히 그게 설득력이 있어서 조금은 우리가 장애 예술을 보다 더 폭넓고 또 예술의 입장에서 더 가깝게 접근하는 데는 저는 사실 이 용어가 한국 사회에서는 효용성이 있다라는 그런 생각을 또 덧붙여서 말씀드려 봅니다. 자, 그 다음에 또 다른 이쪽에 앞으로 앞에 있습니다. 마이크 좀 부탁드립니다.
네, 안녕하세요. 저는 이성수라고 합니다. 저시력 시각 장애인이고요. 연극을 하고 있고 그리고 장애인식 개선 교육 강의도 하고 있습니다. 네, 오늘 해주신 이야기가 창작 활동을 이어가는 데 있어서 굉장히 많은 팁을 얻었다고 생각이 들기도 하고, 네, 그래서 매우 감사하게 잘 들었습니다. 그런데 이제 아까 얼음 돌리기를 우리가 했었는데요. 사실 그 관계성 또 포용성 또 우리 실천 굉장히 공감이 많이 되고 저도 굉장히 많이 필요성을 느끼는 부분이긴 한데 굉장히 간단한 그 예였다고 생각이 들어요. 얼음 돌리기가. 그런데 누군가에게는 굉장히 간단한 그 작업일 수 있겠지만 사실 그 오늘 이 자리에 뭐 그 정도까지의 어떤 최중증 장애인 분이 혹시 계신지 안 계신지 제가 잘 안 보여서 모르겠습니다만 그 얼음을 돌리는 것 자체도 굉장히 어려운 최중증 장애인 분들이 실제로 많이 계시고 그리고 신체적 장애가 아니라 하더라도 발달 장애가 있는 분들 중에도 그 얼음을 함께 이렇게 돌리는 것에 대해서 인지가 좀 어려우신 분들도 많이 계시고 한데 그런 분들이 계신 현장에 가서 장애인식 개선 교육 강의를 해야 할 때 굉장히 난감하고 또 현장에 있는 분들에게 설득력 있는 말씀을 드리기 어려울 때가 많거든요. 그런 현장에서 우리가 어떻게 더 이야기를 하면 좋을지 또 어떻게 실천할 수 있으면 좋을지 조금 조언을 듣고 싶습니다.
I would say equality doesn't always mean exactly the same for everyone. In this instance, when you're talking about different abilities for participation, then that's where we need to listen to the individual and creatively work to adjust or change an activity so that somebody can be included. Be that rubbing the ice or doing a different activity because it's not right for that group. Yeah.
Yep. And the other thing we do is we offer an invitation to do it. We don't say you must do it. So some people here didn't want to touch the ice, and we say that's cool. We said you can have it. You can have the ice on the paper or on your hand. We say you decide if you like to hold it a long time or just pass quickly. So you offer lots of different ways of doing it. And then if someone has then another idea of how to do it or to not do it, that's completely okay. When you're looking at the work that we did in Taiwan with the ice passing and the ribbon cutting, that's another form of choice. We can say either you prefer to pass the ice or maybe you want to cut the ribbon. So you give choice and you don't have any right or wrong way to do it. That's fundamentally our approach. I hope that's helpful.
앨리스 폭스에게 다시 한번 연관해서 제가 추가적으로 말씀을 드리면 혹시 그 브라이튼 대학에서의 트레이닝 프로그램을 하는 그런 그 퍼실리테이터 또는 매개 인력이 이런
Hello, translators. We
자
haven't.
지금
we can't.
다시
Okay.
야, 그 혹시 브라이튼 대학에서 트레이닝 프로그램을 하는 퍼실리테이터 혹은 메디에이터들 간의 그런 전문 인력이 이런 프로젝트를 할 때 도움을 주면서 어려움을 좀 해소할 수 있지 않을까요?
Yeah, exactly that. So if we know we're going to be working with a group that's got complex needs, then they have like one-to-one support. But they're not going to be supported by a carer, they're going to be supported by an artist. And if they need a carer, then their carer's in the room, but not the support. So that's a really great opportunity for people to work together. And then they do it how they want to do it. And also, that's where we get a lot of ideas. That's where it's really inspiring as an artist. You might say, oh, well, you can take this approach or this approach, because that's just how I imagine we can work together. But if someone chooses a different way or shows me a different way because that's how they prefer to do it, then that is like a creative gift to me. I'm like, oh, yeah, fantastic, that's a different way to do it. So it's really inspiring work for artists because so many things happen that you can't guess yourself or you can't control yourself. Yeah.
예.
Thanks for the question. It's a really good question.
예. 그러면 다음의 질문 아까 또 손 드셨던 분이 계셔서요.
저는 건축하는 홍익환이라고 합니다. Thank you for your sharing beautiful experiences. I want to say directly anyway. 방금 질문하신 분에 대해서 제가 생각이 난 게 있는데 뭐냐면 이 인클루시브 아트의 중요한 점은 차이점을 부각시키는 게 아니고 공통점을 같이 찾아내는 것이기 때문에 뭐 비장애인인 제가 쉽게 얘기할 수는 없는 거지만 그 얼음 돌리기를 하기 어려운 상황의 분들이 많은 곳에서는 거기서 또 다른 공통점을 찾을 수 있을 것이고 저 사람들은 저걸 했는데 그냥 그 얼음 돌리기는 그들만의 전유물이 아니라 우리는 우리만의 공통점이 있을 것이고 그걸 나눌 수 있는 방법이 있겠다. 그게 좋은 사례가 될 것 같고요. 뭐 개인적인 생각입니다. 그리고 저는 뭐 많이 부족하지만 뭐 예술에 대해서 관심이 많아서 막 보고 있는데 이때까지는 뭐 마이너리티에 대한 얘기나 혹은 뭐 게토 이런 것들에 대해서 차이점을 부각시키는 것 작업들을 많이 봐왔고 그리고 타자로서 그들을 봤을 때도 그들을 차이점을 통해서 구분을 하고 그런 방식들만 봐왔는데 오늘 본 내용들은 차이점을 부각시키지 않고 공통점만으로 연대를 하고 되려 차이점들을 축복해 줄 수 있다는 게 너무 감동적이었고 네 그리고 질문은 그냥 한 가지입니다. 그냥 건축을 할 때는 되게 엘리트주의에 입각한 디자인을 하게 되어 있어요. 그러니까 소셜하우징을 만들 때도 소셜하우징이 필요한 사람들은 건축 교육을 받지 않은 사람들일 텐데 뭐 뭐 서양권에서는 뭐 주로 뭐 백인 남성의 뭐 이런 건축가들이 막 많겠죠. 부모들도 아이비리그 나오고 자기도 아이비리그 가고 이런 사람들이 소셜 하우징을 만들어내는 되게 웃긴 상황이고, 그거에 대해서 비판해야 된다는 생각을 별로 안 가지고 있는 것 같아요. 뭐 그래서 그 뭐 인클루시브 아트와 건축과 관련된 어떤 사례들이 있는지가 궁금하고, 그 아까 말씀해 주셨던 인터디스플리너리 리서치에 건축가가 포함되어서 집을 지은 건지 아니면은 건축가가 배제되고 집을 지은 건지가 궁금합니다. 왜냐하면 그 건축가가 집을 짓는 방법, 그러니까 그 지역에 있는 재료들이 무엇이며 기후가 무엇이며 기후의 변화에 따라 그게 어떻게 몇 년을 지속할 수 있다라는 것을 알려주는 것 자체가 엘리트주의에 입각한 그 건축의 디스플린을 적용시키는 것이기 때문에 그래서 궁금합니다.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about the Rocket Artist Studios. So recently we got funding to work with an architect to make an inclusive art studios. So not housing, but inclusive studios. And so we worked with an architect just to design the interior, not the mass of the building. And that architect wrote an essay about inclusive participatory design, and they spent time with the learning disabled rocket artists to understand what they want to do in the building. I'm happy to share that essay with you, but fundamentally one thing we learned was that it was quite a small space. We learned that everybody needs something different. Some people need a space where small and contained to make their work, and then other people need a big space where they walk up and down to make their work. And some people like a quiet space, some people like a noisy space. And then also we wanted to be able to do painting, to watch films, to do performance. So we also had many different people doing many different things in one space. And I think a clever solution to that was that everything is flexible, everything can move. So the desk can be down, the desk can be up. The curtain can be across to make a small space, the curtain be open to make a big space. The lighting can be down, the lighting can be bright. The sound can be on, or the sound can be quiet. So now what we are able to do, because we know the rocket artists, we have a relationship with them. If I know that somebody is coming on a Monday and they like a quiet, small, cozy environment, we can set the studio to meet their needs. And then the next day, if I know I got busy people, noisy people, we can set the room to change. So yeah, we asked them what did they want to do, and then we made everything is on wheels, can come in, can go out, can go up, can go down. So that's just an inclusive studios. So I'll share that practice. But I do think that when our experience of designing the studio, sometimes architects think, I've got a ramp, so it's finished. Yeah. That's okay now, there's a ramp, you know. The architect very much was thinking about physical access, so yeah, of course we have a ramp, but also I would say emotional access. What do people like to do? How can people have fun together in this space? So we had this brilliant meeting when they wanted to ask us, okay, so how can we design the fun into the room? we were like, oh wow, okay, what does that mean? So we had that conversation. So we have some funny things that the rockets can do, so the artwork can come down from the ceiling to dry, goes up in the ceiling, then we put it up in the ceiling, and the rockets can do this. So also we design how we want it to be together in the space. But it's difficult. I think that's a very... the architect that we work with, their opinion was sometimes inclusive architecture or architecture where you talk to the community about what they want, there's a real challenge between the architectural design that the architect is thinking is going to look like this, and then the community, what they need. There's this, problem here. And so I guess the concern in that is how do you collaborate with local communities to design what they need? It's difficult, yeah.
And there is a lot been written on the problems you identify around universal design, inclusive design. Joss Boys is another name that comes to mind of work in this area and how to practice architecture inclusively, like Alice has given an example of. Thank you.
예, 보다 영역을 넓혀갈 수 있어서 좋은 주제였던 것 같습니다. 자, 이제 저희 시간이 12시가 되긴 했는데요. 정말 마지막으로 이 질문 꼭 해야 되겠다는 분이 계시다면 한 분만 허용하겠습니다. 예, 마지막 한 분입니다.
It's from our friend.
안녕하세요. 저는 피터팬 클럽 우리 중증 아동 청소년들과 함께하고 있는 문화 놀이터에서 미술 작업을 함께하고 있는 예술가입니다. 앨리스 폭스 교수님이 한국에 있는 현장을 방문해 주셨는데요. 올해 6월이었어요. 그 사진이 또 나와서 되게 인상 깊은 순간이었습니다. 저는 여러 이런 대화의 장에서 느꼈던 게 예술가로서 제일 많이 얻는 영감이 우리 친구들이랑 같이 작업을 할 때 저에게 많은 영감을 주고 받는 것 같아요. 내가 원하는 대로 되지 않을 때도 너무 많고 정말 유연함이 필요한 현장인데요. 그런 면에서 많은 공감을 해주시고 그런 프로젝트를 이렇게 직접 설명을 들을 수 있어서 오늘 정말 좋은 경험이었습니다. 한편으로 또 정말 궁금했던 질문이었는데요. 한국에서의 사회와 지역과 구조와 여러 가지 환경들은 다른데 한국에 방문하시고 이렇게 5년 동안 함께 하시면서 이 우리 한국의 문화예술, 장애예술 교육에 대한 부분에서 어떤 영감을 또 교수님이 받으시는지 궁금합니다.
I'm so inspired by the ambition and the optimism here, actually. Yeah. I feel like something really exciting is going to happen with this new building, with this organization. I feel very inspired by just the real dedication and enthusiasm that I've seen in the organizations that I've visited. And I think that there's culturally, Korea right now is like super hot. Yeah, you've got K-pop, you've got the fashion world, you've got the art world. It's really globally taking off. So I really am very excited. I predict in the next 5 years is going to be this type of inclusive creative practice is also gonna take off. Yeah. I get optimism when I come here. There's not so much optimism in Europe.
I couldn't come in June with my children at home, but I would echo that. So excited for the future of Korean inclusive arts, grounded in Korean practices and histories and future thinking.
이게 자연스럽게 좀 마무리 그 말씀이 된 것 같기도 합니다. 결국은 저희 한국 사회에 이제 관계를 맺으셨으니까 결국 상호작용으로 가고 그리고 서로 신뢰를 쌓고 그래서 이 포용적 예술이 보다 더 파급되고 자리 잡으면서 보다 우리 사회가 변화할 수 있는 동력으로 작동하기를 바라는 마음입니다. 혹시 두 분이 마무리 말씀 덧붙이실 게 있을까요?
I just want to say a big thank you for everyone listening all this time. Very kind, very generous.
Yeah.
Thank you.
그래서 저희도 감사한 마음 그리고 두 분의 그런 배려 깊은 마음 그리고 친절함 여러 가지 열정 이것을 저희도 감사드린다는 말씀 다시 한번 드립니다. 자 그러면 오늘은 굉장히 좋은 시간이었고요. 아침부터 이렇게 많은 분들이 성원해 주셔서 정말 다시 한번 감사드리고 앞으로 이제 여러분께서 포용적 예술이라는 개념을 보다 가깝게 사용하시고 또 많은 그 사례를 만들어 가시기를 바라면서 오늘 아침 세션은 이렇게 마치도록 하겠습니다. 여러분 감사합니다.